Good evening, everyone. I am Lisha Dore, and it is my pleasure to welcome you to One-on-One, where we bring to you some of the best minds of Trinidad and Tobago. Tonight, we will be talking about the private sector, businesses, jobs, investment, and the overall business environment in Trinidad and Tobago. The 2026-2027 national budget is due next month, and many of us are eager to hear what is in store. Businesses will be looking very closely at what the budget could mean for growth, investment, jobs, and the challenges that they face every day. Now, some of the issues we hope to discuss tonight are access to foreign exchange, the ease of doing business, confidence in the economy, and the opportunities ahead. Those of you who have been following us know that whenever we talk about the business sector economy, these are some of the issues that we frequently would address. So we are continuing our discussions tonight. Joining us are two leading voices from the business community, Mr. Vivek Charan, no stranger to our platform. It's always a privilege to have Vivek here. Vivek is the chairman of the Confederation of Regional Business Chambers. And joining us for the first time, and we say to everyone who has come here on this program for the first time that this is not going to be a last time, and we have never been disappointed so far. So we have Mr. Rudolph Hamanji. I hope I pronounced the name correctly, right? He is the Chief Executive Officer of the Private Sector Organization of Trinidad and Tobago, PSOT. And as we continue with the program tonight, I am sure people will have questions and more information will be shared about PSOT. I've been following them. They're doing some great work across Trinidad and Tobago. And of course, my co-host tonight is our very own Dr. Donnie Rogers. I would like to extend a warm welcome to you, all our viewers who are joining us on Zoom, social media. I'm seeing familiar faces, familiar names and so on coming on the program. Welcome. We're thrilled to have you with us tonight, members of the media who will be joining us. Thank you. As always, I say this every week, we want this program to be interactive. We encourage you, please, if you want to make a contribution, ask a question, raise your hand. Of course, use the chats for your questions and comments. So without further ado, one more thing before I go, share the live, please. We are live on Facebook. We are also live on YouTube at the Keep It Real Politics and More page. So please share the live. Without further ado, I'll pass the mic over to Donnie, who will say a few words and then kick off our discussion. Over to you, Donnie.
Good night, Lisha. Good night to our guests and to our two esteemed panelists who have been canvassing the country over the last couple months, engaging with the business sector, the private sector, and getting their feedback on a wide range of issues. And these two gentlemen representing the bodies that they do, the Confederation of Regional Business Chambers and the Private Sector Organization of Trinidad and Tobago, have been, over the last 5 or 6 weeks, have been at every corner of the country, Lisha, from Point Fortin to Chagaramas. I believe they should be in Tobago soon as well. Tobago has not been left out. And, the work they have been doing, I think this is the first time we are seeing any organization doing this type of work to get feedback from the business sector, to be able to translate this into something workable for the government. And the two organizations must be commended tonight in their leadership of the conversation. So to that, guys, I must congratulate you all. And I look forward to a very engaging, meaningful, and productive conversation with these guys. Lisha, if you ever go to one of the consultations and you listen to how these things are done, you will really be amazed, I'm sure tonight you're going to get, a very good taste of it. So, guys, over to you. Lisha, who would you like to lead off the discussion?
I will leave it up to the gentleman to decide, but of course, my leading question is a very simple question. May not have a simple answer, but it's a simple question. How is the business environment in Trinidad and Tobago right now? So I will leave it up to you guys. Anyone who wants to kick it off, please feel free.
I think Rudolph, as Rudolph is here for the first time, we should let Rudolph
Thank you,
take the
Vivek.
stand, as it were.
No
Yeah,
pressure.
throw him in the deep end, man. Yeah.
Good evening, Lisha, Dr. Rogers, Vivek, all our viewers and those listening online. Thank you very much for the invitation. It is indeed a pleasure to be here and join you all in this most important conversation. And I have been a fan for a while now, so I expect a lively and valuable conversation. What's the sentiment amongst the business community? How do they feel? Lisha, from as Donnie said, Donnie, we did make it to Tobago on the 20th. I was able to get it in with the
Wonderful.
stakeholders' support. So,
Mhm.
Lisha, from the 20th of July to the 20th of August, a square month, as Donnie introduced me and Vivek, we've been on this roadshow. It's called On the Road to Transformation. And we asked that question of over 700 business leaders. And the overwhelming response is confident and optimistic, but a little fatigued. And I think that sums it up best. There is interest in investment, in growing their businesses, in collaboration, in aligning with government policy and leveraging incentives. So that's where the confidence and the optimism lies. And I'm sure we'll get into some of that later. As well as you can imagine there is fatigue, some feeling of years of disappointment. And at the same time, some of them are very reluctant to be as open-minded as they used to be. So that was why we had to engage them and begin this process of converting them and reopening their hearts and minds.
Okay, thank you for that. I am glad to hear confident and optimistic, right? I mean, that's very, very positive. And yes, I can certainly understand the feeling of fatigue, right? Because of what went on, in the last decade, which we often refer to as a decade of darkness, right? I do think, though, what we need to do in Trinidad is to look forward. So, Vivek, I want to bring you in here. Before we get any deeper, maybe you can give us your response to that question. How is the business environment in Trinidad and Tobago right now?
I mean, to be honest, I think the business environment when it comes to SMEs and retail is pretty tight. And it remains tight simply because A, the Forex situation, B, they're still in a lot of debt, and C, the retail environment outside of food, pharmaceutical, toiletries remains pretty it remains quite tight again, I would say. It hasn't really grown as much as we would like it to. And all of this really has to do with a lot of the management of the economy that happened before. That being said, the incredibly exciting projects that seem to be on the horizon. I see a lot of people online responding in the press and so on. There seem to be, it seems that people have been gaslighted for so long that they don't want to believe that things can A, change, and B, that things can get better. Because, for example, when you hear about the AI, the AI data centers and so on, I mean, that's an incredible project, and that's taking us exactly where we need to be. Yet I keep seeing in the newspapers at times people saying, well, we don't have we don't have the capacity, we don't have the water, we don't have the energy, we don't have the this. But the fact is, at the stage that we are at, if we really want to revitalize the economy, if we want to break away just from the energy sector alone, if we want to diversify, if we want to take a step into the future, not only for, let's say, the income that can be derived to the government, but simply to work at a project like a data center. It could change generations of young people in terms of what they now have access to in terms of jobs and training and so on. So somebody in the newspapers, I think it was last week, and we responded at the Confed, was saying that, well, we don't have the skill sets and we don't have the people, and but there are already data centers in Trinidad, right?
Yes.
So the fact is that even if there isn't, and even if skilled people come in, what it does create is that if there's employment within the data centers, a lot of our young people can get involved and we can start to build that skill set. The same way we did with energy. At the beginning, when we started with energy, look at how many local service providers there are to the energy sector, right? And look at how good we have become at that. And when you look at some of these service providers in the energy sector, some of them are actually small, medium type businesses. When you look at, you go all the way to our friend at the Maritime Association in Chaguaramas, and you look at some of the skill sets that they have developed there. Again, small and medium skill sets that they have learned over time. The only way to really learn something, Leisha, and to everyone listening out there, is to actually get involved and get the opportunity, and bringing it here and starting this on Trinidad and Tobago soil, as it were, new projects, innovative projects, that's going to say a lot, and it's going to provide a lot of opportunities when they do happen. But again, you see, these are long-term projects, and I feel confident about it. I feel brighter about the future. But you asked, like, how do we feel now? And one of the issues is that between now and when many of these projects are going to start, and when they're going to start to ramp up and actually begin to be monetized and bring income and jobs and so on, we are still sort of in the same place. And that is why when the Confed goes out with PSOT and Rudy and these guys, and we talk about that, we're trying to get people to diversify into different things. Now, when Donnie came on, Donnie was talking about like Rudy and myself, but I have to say, Donnie himself has been doing a human service in terms of voluntary work, working with the government, working with people in the private sector, working to bring projects on and to help revitalize the agricultural sector in amazing ways. A lot of those things he can't possibly talk about because a lot of private individuals and private companies are involved. But it's very exciting because we have things that are going to happen in agriculture. We have things that are going to happen in energy. We have things that are going to happen in, let's say, tech and AI and so on. And the thing is, when it comes to retail and SMEs, and the SMEs that are particularly in retail, right? We want something exciting to happen to them too. I myself, I'm living it, right, Leisha? I'm living it. And I'm telling you that things are uncomfortable at the moment. Yes, the future does 100% look brighter, but between now and that bright future, we have to survive, right? And one of the main things we need to do is diversify. We need to get into some light manufacturing. We need to get into some import substitution. We need to get into processing. We need to think about, a lot of SMEs and a lot of us are kind of insular in the sense that we believe I can't trust people, boy, and I can't work with my family, and I can't get into partnerships, and I can't collaborate. But the truth is, a lot of the projects that are coming into Trinidad, the very big ones, are collaborative in the sense that there's more than one company involved. A lot of the big projects, there's no one company or one person that is really going to be heading the entire thing. So when the larger things get, the more collaborative they become. And we need to try to think about being collaborative, and fencing it properly legally and so on at a lower, at the SME level and so on, if we're thinking about diversifying. But one of the most important things in that path to diversification, Leisha, is the price of land. And SMEs are already burdened with debt from COVID, from the moratorium during COVID times, opening, those 2.5 years of not earning income and stuff like that. And the retail sector hasn't really recovered. We have lost some big box retailers, over the last couple of years. As not too long ago, we had a major clothing company also kind of shuttered as well too. I can't blame the government for that, but what I can say is that it's indicative of where people's disposable income is, and what people are prioritizing, and so on. And the idea is that we need to start to create our own. We need to start to save income, and getting into light manufacturing, getting into things like garment manufacturing, um, getting into any sort of import substitution, where instead of importing something that has one use in Trinidad, single-use items, for example, instead of importing them in, let's make it locally. And if you make it locally and we find a market locally for it, then we save US dollars. We're able to sustain the market for these particular products, and we also able to find a niche for a lot of the people that were traditionally in retail, and they're able to diversify into something else and earn some income at the same time, with the potential to sell within CARICOM. And I've been talking to Rudy. We've been talking to the ministry and so on as well too, and we're really trying to find a way whereby, just like ETEC used to be an incubator for small manufacturers or manufacturers on their way to export and import substitution, we need to get back or find an incubator where we can access land, we can access warehouse space, which is faster, right, than actually accessing land and building on it. Even if it's shared spaces, below market price. And $5 and up per square foot is what warehouses are renting for right now. And a lot of these warehouses, Lisha, are empty for like years now, right? And nobody's renting them. Yet the price remains the same. Currently, ETEC is about $4. The last administration had raised it higher to about $5. But we need to lower it if we really want to get that buy-in from small and medium businesses who are willing to take the risk to diversify. What is also important is that as a factor of production, keeping the price of land high is going to impact the price of the good that they're going to produce. And we want that to be competitive enough in the short term that companies, large companies or large retailers that want to buy this particular product that you are now making here, whether that be garment, whether that be single-use products, whatever they may be, paper products or otherwise, be able to buy it, and that the price is not much greater than what they're able to import it for into Trinidad and Tobago.
All
And
right,
that is
Vivek,
why we have to be careful about that particular factor of production.
right. Vivek, if I may intervene, right? So you are raising the price of land being too high, and that, as you say, is having a negative impact on diversification, right? Now, both yourself and Rudolph, as well as Donnie, you all are members of the PSOT, the private sector organization of Trinidad and Tobago. And I am wondering, how can an organization like that help to alleviate an issue such as the price of land being too high? Do you have
No,
a
well, there are actually they are actually working on it. They're focusing on it.
Mhm.
Some of these things are a bit long term. I'm working on something with Rudolph, but I'll let Rudolph speak to that because that's the man in PSOT.
Okay.
Lisha, that is the question. And actually, you can replace the land issue with a number of other barriers that have
Right.
faced our country. How can we solve it? And as you're hearing, not in medium to long-term horizon, but as quickly as possible.
Correct.
The major enabling factor that is now allowing us to quickly overcome these barriers, or to at least begin unlocking them, is that for the first time, we have a clearly defined national non-energy sector diversification plan that has clearly articulated what the targets are and which sectors and sub-segments are being targeted by the government. What does that allow? It allows the private sector to integrate, as as he was intimating, integrate around common denominators, collaborate and create synergy, because joint ventures, cooperatives, and co-opetition is what those approaches to business are what has allowed other ecosystems in advanced territories to face the hyper-dynamism of geopolitics, increased demands on resources and restricted resources, trade imbalances, and a host of other shocks that we have been facing as a globe. How does that translate when business associations genuinely represent their membership and activate with an equitable lens? They can then encourage, manage, and coordinate that collaboration approach. That is why in December, so PSOTT was only formed in December of 2025. That is why this model was endorsed by the Minister of Trade, Investment and Tourism. He himself, remember, for those who might forget or don't know, a 50-plus year veteran in business, building a global brand, having faced many of the challenges that Vivek speaks. The minister sometimes says that he built his company without ever accessing one incentive that is offered by the government. And I believe him. I don't think I have any reason to doubt him. So he understood firsthand these systemic perennial barriers, because the prices of inputs, whether it's land, labor, technology, those have always been barriers for SMEs in this country. And large firms will succeed in spite of. They have legacy access to resources. They have been able to attract some of the best talent, whereas other people are leaving Trinidad and Tobago, unfortunately, brain drain. They have established networks. They have been able to use those resources and privileges to leverage existing infrastructure, incentives, tax regimes, etc. So let's put them in a box for a moment and let them continue on their trajectory. Of course, at PSOTT, we always say all of the business sector needs to operate ethically and within competitive frameworks. So the SMEs have been unfortunately under-recognized, under-enabled, and underrepresented. So with the advent of the PSOTT and BSOs such as the legacy ones, and of course the Confederation, as well as persons, BSOs such as the Chaguanas Chamber of Commerce and the Siparia Chamber of Commerce, joining and sitting on our board, which is an endorsement that there was a gap in this level of synergy, allows us now to effectively coordinate the private sector to provide the government with a clear pathway, a clear focus as to what is the pathway to unlock these barriers. So we align our strategies and the guidance that we are providing to the wider business community based on the government's chart for diversification. And in a very simple way, if the government wishes for the private sector, and the minister has said this himself many times, government should not be in business. Government's role is to facilitate, enable, regulate. That way, if everything is equitable and accessible, and the ease of doing business is where it's supposed to be, then SMEs can make the choices and decisions to diversify. So the government has identified tourism, for example, as a sector for diversification. And they've gone a step further. They have identified 6 segments under tourism. They have also identified that there is an opportunity for persons to get into agri-processing or expand their existing agri-processing businesses. If you need to facilitate that, then the private sector is in the process of determining the requests, the actual projects that we are willing to invest in, because we have to unlock our capital and we have to develop these collaborative projects. And we are presenting those back to the government and saying, okay, you've identified these industries, sectors, segments. We are ready to align and do what we have to do. And in order for us to de-risk or to have the best chance of success, these are the enabling levers that we need from you. And just today, you would have seen that the Ministry of Land and Legal Affairs signed an MOU with the UN to digitalize our land registry system. And that demonstrates to us that the government is listening, because they are putting focus in a space where there's so many competing interests, Donnie and Leisha. You all know everything is urgent in Trinidad and Tobago. They have put a focus on answering that call, because it's one thing to say, and I'll close on this. It's one thing to say, yes, we understand you need land and that it should be affordable and that you should be able to access public lands as well as private lands within a certain incentive framework. And then full stop. But then you realize everything is still manual. The deeds are not kosher. We can't find title. So then what's the point of the commitment? So you're seeing the government giving the commitment, but then also putting the systems in place to ensure that when the applications are made, for example, or the conveyances have to take place, it is streamlined and it can be tracked. So that is how we can get the business community to unlock its potential. It has to be this hand-in-hand approach where the private sector acknowledges this national strategy, we organize ourselves, and then we responsibly state, this is what we want to do, and this is what we need you to do, and the government responds in kind.
Rudolph, all right, Donnie, you go ahead. Go ahead.
So, right. So let me just say a couple of things here based on what Vivek and you had said. And Leisha, you had pointed out, we came out from a period of 10 years of basically flat economy. I always refer to the agricultural statistics that I use, and we were in a 10-year period of decline. At the end of 2024, we were still in output 50% lower in output than pre-COVID levels. So the frustration on businesses, and honestly, this transcends not just in agriculture, but throughout the economy. And what we are seeing now, the level of frustration that we see in the businesses, it's natural, right? But we have to be realistic. And I think that we have to approach our slate now as being very, what's the word I'm looking for? As being able to carry us, not just for 1 or 2 years, but to take us further 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. So our policies must be enabling to longevity. Those things cannot happen from a knee-jerk reaction. And I think one thing that the government has to be applauded for is that when issues come up and when issues arise, they are very open to a sustainable solution, right? I will point out in the agricultural sector, I mean, I always try to stay in my lane, that we had an issue with broiler eggs. There's EOIs for broiler egg production facilities. There's more than one credible people who have the experience who are submitting EOIs, right? That speaks about, one, the technical capacity we have, and two, it also lends evidence relative to the confidence that these private businesses would have to invest into a broiler egg production facility where they were probably hatcheries before, right? I can't call any names, so that's the best I could say, right? When we look at the Nestle issue, this Nestle issue was one of the biggest agricultural issues that came up. We saw the Prime Minister immediately get involved, and they have been very facilitative and enabling towards a positive result. Now, I can also tell you there that the amount of companies coming forward, there is no shortage of local SMEs who wants to take part in this Nestle transition. There is no shortage of companies in the SME sector. That speaks volumes. Now, there's a lot of things that are happening, but because of confidentiality issues, you can't come out and say it. But for people who are in the position where they know, it's something that I could say from my experience, it's there, right? But we have been seeing the sustainable approach being taken by the government. There is a good example that Vivek spoke of there. The warehousing space. It's down to about $4. Before it was $5, $5.50 and stuff like that. ETEC was able to do that, although they have a lot of mess to clean up inside of ETEC. And I think that's public knowledge. So we can say that, right? But they were still able to reduce the price, but not reduce it to an extent where it's unsustainable, right? But I also agree that for startups, maybe we need to look at that entire ecosystem to create that enabling environment. Because if we want to promote diversification, we are talking about increased startups. So we need to also put focus on that. But I think generally, looking at the SME sector and looking at what has been going on, my analysis of it is that we are stable and pointing upwards, right? Yes, we have issues. Any country would have issues, but we have a lot of things that smaller countries didn't have when they diversified. Look at St. Lucia. St. Lucia lost their banana crop and their banana industry, and they moved to becoming tourist-based. Any time of year, you could land in St. Lucia and the place full of tourists. Any time of year, you could go St. Lucia, pay, and get back change in US. And they were able to do that in a few short years. But it took a plan. And from what you are saying, CEO, this is the first time that you're seeing a dedicated plan towards that change. And we are seeing the government and by extension, the ministers leading from in front. Minister of Trade has been there to almost all, if not all, of the public outreach from PSOT.
And of course, the ministry, technocrats, the PS,
correct.
They're always in the room.
Yeah, so it shows that they are vested into the creation of change, and they are taking the meaningful approach to actually get that done. It's not just talk, right? And Vivek, thank you for the kudos. I don't believe in complaining alone or sitting here and talking or going on news sometimes that I do and talk. I like to be in the middle of the conversation, because where we could complain, we should also be able to put our feet down and say, let us contribute to the change.
Yes.
And I think if that is our approach collectively, we're going to end up in a good place.
And you know, Lisha, just to add one quick point, it is always important for us to remember that just over a year ago, in our most important sector, again, because of public policy that was not necessarily aligned to private sector interests and what the private sector, especially the SMEs, were asking for. We were down over 30,000 barrels of oil, down 1.3 billion cubic feet of natural gas, down by 1,600 rig days, and all to Donnie's. So Donnie spoke about agriculture, which we know for far too long has not been given its equitable share. But now we are seeing a change. So I want to endorse that. And that's one of the reasons we created an implementation committee focused on agriculture and agri-processing. But even in our most important sector, Lisha, I have to say we as a country, we did not manage ourselves properly. And that naturally would have had the unfortunate knock-on, the negative multiplier effect, because we know when large investments are taking place and when companies are growing, there's a positive multiplier effect because more people are employed, they have disposable income, etc., etc. But of course, the reverse is true. When sectors contract, when companies are closing down and people, instead of working here and paying income tax, are migrating and building other countries, what will you expect to happen with the SME space? So that is why, to Donnie's point, it is important for the leadership of the country who have been given a mandate, whether people chose to give them their individual mandate or not. The fact is they have been given a mandate and they have articulated a clear plan. So, and the Minister of Trade held himself accountable on the 27th of May. He explained what had been done in the first year and what needed to be done in this fiscal coming in to 2027. So I just wanted to remind viewers and listeners about the context, the real context, because we sometimes forget. And that's why the SME space has been facing even greater burdens because we did not manage the energy space as effectively as we should have.
So on that note, Rudolph, would you say that our citizens are expecting a turnaround too soon?
Now that is a very interesting question. I will tell you something. When you study, one of my fields of specialization is in public innovation and governance. And when you study how public policy is adopted and how it should really be developed from a ground-up approach with a heavy focus on genuine consultation and communication and a feedback loop. When you understand how it's supposed to work, expectations are managed. Again, unfortunately, because in the last few, the last years, the last administration's approach, especially in its second term, and what I'm saying is not a secret either. It was well reported and documented even across the business community. You had, for example, a Minister of Finance who publicly refused to engage with the business chamber of Trinidad and Tobago. So when you develop public policy in a vacuum and in a manner that frustrates people, you are going to naturally create anxiety. You're going to create fear. You're going to create a dissonance. So when someone else comes along, and it could have been the reverse, but we are facing with what is in front of us. With this administration coming along and adopting a different approach to public policy development, because of that pent-up frustration, you see in the literature and in the case studies that people are going to vent on you. They're going to have unrealistic expectations because for far too long they have really been stifled. So they are looking to you to solve all of these problems because everything has converged. So it is important that some of us help manage those expectations, especially as business leaders, especially as people who undertake the responsibility of representing diverse business interests. We can't put all of it on the government shoulders. We have to speak to our own people. And that's why I brought up the context of the energy sector, because we have to speak to our people and to help manage those expectations and to guide persons along a path of prioritization. There will be certain types of businesses and sectors that need to receive priority attention now. And once we get those building blocks in place, then the others will naturally start to benefit. And again, all of us who run businesses, you know you have limited resources. You have to apply some type of matrix, criteria, parameters, whatever word you want to use, to help you identify what am I going to treat with first, second, third. Yes, there may be some things in parallel, but expectations are heavy, Leisha. People want a lot, and understandably so. We all do. However, we have to manage ourselves and use our circle of influence to keep people focused. And we're all looking forward again to the second budget for this administration. And I can attest that in speaking to the Minister of Finance directly, he has acknowledged the fact that when this entire consultation process was completed, he is looking forward to receiving recommendations and policies that are not simply laundry lists, but will align with projects that the private sector is willing to undertake. And that helps him to prioritize. And that is why I took so long to get to that point, to paint the context of if we have to prioritize individually, even within businesses, obviously at the government level. And how do they do that? We have to help them by building the right business cases and managing our own expectations.
Rudolph is saying all of the right things there, but I'm wondering really and truly, can our people appreciate what you're saying? Because, you know, we have a tendency, we're very emotional people in Trinidad, and when we want something and we want it now, and, you know, we feel we haven't been treated fairly, you know, I mean, that is all we're focused on.
I don't want to hog the mic too much. I saw Vivek, he came off there but let me jump in and just say, it's interesting you bring that up, because the last consultation, as I said, was in Tobago on the 20th, right?
Mm-hmm.
I spent 4.5 hours with 30 plus business leaders in Tobago, most of which, of course, as we would appreciate, play directly or indirectly in the tourism space. And you are right. The first hour and a half, that was the response. You said it. However, when you go with genuine plans and you listen effectively and people build trust in you, I will attest, you can see, we will not get 100%. Some of the emotions will always play, but then we have to be very careful again about what we promise and how we communicate and continue to engage and what we deliver so that we don't trigger people. And a lot of triggering has been going on for decades. We have to stop that. And that's why BSOs exist, because we are supposed to hold that line and ensure there's a buffer between what's going on in the public sector and our members and the wider business community.
Okay. Vivek, I know we may have cut you across, so the mic is yours now.
No, not at all. That's a very good question you raise, Leisha. And the answer to that question is simply, first of all, what does success look like? And success or change for the better looks differently to different sets of people.
Mm-hmm.
So on one end, you have the government who has inherited, and it's no secret, the government has inherited, finances that are far from adequate in terms of their own needs, their own revenue streams, and so on, right? To fund their own ministries and projects and other things like that. the way this thing can work is that the government is working hard to get big projects in. Big projects are going to increase their own revenue streams through taxation or otherwise. Foreign direct investment that is also going to help them. When the government reaches to a stage where with their big projects, their revenue begins to increase, when they decide to invest that revenue into the country again, either again through projects, either again they're able to start up programs, either they're able to fund their ministries, for their ministries to have projects and so on, then it starts to trickle down. And then we see the changes that are going to happen. With regard to the business sector, you have large business that is saying, listen, things like the ease of doing business for us has been difficult. There are other aspects of doing business in Trinidad that has been tough for us. I think PSOT is also working on these things for them. But then large, the different sectors of business. You have agriculture, you have processing within agriculture, you have livestock, you have actually crops and so on. You have processing, you have manufacturing, very wide manufacturing. You have tourism from people who own hotels to simple people running tours and that sort of thing. Then you have small and medium businesses who are also mostly in retail and other types of businesses like that, and service industries as well too. And the success is gonna look different for each one of them. Is success going to land immediately for everybody? And the answer to that, unfortunately, is no. But that's the reality. But I will speak to what success looks like for us as SMEs. And what success looks like for us as SMEs and as a microcosm. I am third generation. I have kids of my own, a family. There's my brother and myself, my mother involved in this business. And we want to be at a stage where we are out of some debt. We see some growth in our own sales. And we are able no longer to focus on getting our business ticking over, from month to month, paying our bills from month to month, stressing about getting US dollars to stock the shelves and so on, thinking about, getting to a stage where we're earning income again. And then when we earn an income again, thinking about, are we going to grow our business? Investing in our own kids and so on, which is the next generation. And important things like that. And that is generally across small and medium businesses, but largely small and medium businesses want to get back to that space they used to be in. And the space they used to be in was one where they were focusing on growth. They were focusing on the growth of their own income streams and perhaps the expansion of their own businesses and thinking about getting into other businesses as well too. And is that going to happen next year? Is that going to happen in a mere matter of months? And the honest answer to that question is no, it is not. But what we have now that we have not had, and I'm confident of saying that we have not had this before, because I have been engaged for the last 10 years, right? Representing small and medium businesses, is for the first time we have a huge collaboration of different types of people and chambers. We have all the regional chambers. We have regional chambers within the Confederation of Regional Business Chambers. We have larger regional business chambers like Shagona, San Fernando, and so on, Tobago, and so on. We have the Private Sector Association of Trinidad and Tobago that was sort of mandated by or kind of helped developed by the Minister of Trade himself. And the Minister of Trade, the workers in the staff of the Ministry of Trade, PSOT, Confederation of Regional Business Chambers, other business chambers out there. For the first time, we have this level of unity that I have not seen in the last 10 years. And we have a direct line of let's say, communication to the Minister of Trade himself. And so for the first time, we feel as though we are being heard. And you see, that is where the real success comes in, Lisha. The real success comes in not with just the big projects and being able to land a data center or being able to land the next huge oil field in Trinidad and Tobago. The success for us, and who are we? We are the small and medium businesses that populate many of the constituencies across Trinidad and Tobago, including those marginal constituencies that flipped in the last election. because those marginal constituencies, as well as many of the other constituencies, realized they did not have a future under the management of the economy of the last government. And that's not me being political, you know. I think that is just a accurate observation and analysis of what was happening. And we want to see that change, but we want to see success ourselves. And that success isn't measured in the fact that, well, you know what, if we don't start to see millions of dollars in profit, then this government didn't do nothing. That's not what that success looks like. What that success looks like means just being able to breathe again and not being worried about the bank breathing down your neck. Being able to concentrate not on keeping your business afloat or keeping your business ticking over from month to month, but being able to concentrate on your kids and what you think of what you want for them in their future. Being able to think about, hey, you know what? I'm so happy I'm doing well. I think I want to do something else now. I want to expand my business. I want to get into other things. And that, for many people, is success enough. And that's why this budget coming up is actually quite important, because people are holding their breath, and they're not holding their breath just for the 2 years or as it is, since this government has been in power, you know, from the last budget to this budget. They're not holding their breath since then. They're holding their breath, you know, I would say almost for the last 8 or 9 years. They've been holding their breath, and they're continuing to do so. So where this budget goes is going to signal to the entire economy from the top to the bottom what is in store. And I would certainly hope that some of the very hard work that a lot of people who aren't paid to do it are not directly related to the government and are going out there in their voluntary, you know, way and time at the Confederation, at PSOT, even at Donny, right? Because Donny is a force of one by himself. Going out there and trying to work with people to find some improvement. And I would consider, you know, I'm very happy to be in this bunch of people because I feel very comfortable, because I really feel strongly about SMEs and what they've been going through, because I live in it. I mean, from my grandmother to my parents to now my brother and I, and my wife, we have all the stress that they used to have. And I would hate to see it stutter and you know, after all the blood, sweat, and tears. And I know many other people out there feel the same way. But I feel like I'm in really good company, because PSOT, for all the big work that they do, because, you know, they're also in tourism. They're also doing, you know, they're also heading some projects and so on a larger level. Donny himself trying to work with some very large projects as well too. But what I feel comfortable with these guys is, for the first time, they are also focused on small and medium people too, because they believe, like I do, that these people have a place in Trinidad and Tobago and that they want to see them be successful again as well. And they have a right to be successful, Lisha. Because I remember going to at the end of the last administrative political term, meeting with Minister of Finance, a meeting with Exim Bank, a meeting with this. And every single time you meet, you're just coming up against a brick wall. No, we can't do this. No, we can't help you. No, this is going on. We need you all to make choices. Who can get this and who can't get it? And you understand what I mean? Just brick walls, one after the next. And that has a way of wearing people down. But people made a choice. And the good thing about the choice that they made by choosing this government is that this government has allowed for more expression, more communication, more collaboration. And I can't speak for the other ministries, because we're really only dealing with the Ministry of Trade here, right? But when it comes to Kama and Neil Gosain at the Ministry of Trade, they have been very, very collaborative with us and listening to what we are saying. And it is my sincere hope that all the work, all the communication, everything that we've put in will be reflected in some way in the budget coming up.
You're on mute, Lisha. Lisha, you're on mute.
Right. So I will ask. Now we know of the conversation that the business sector is having about being stagnated and being in a certain position because of the last, you know, however long, right? I personally believe that not to discount the external factors. In business, we were taught that there are internal factors that could influence your resilience. And when we look at the resilience of our sector, I mean, the first thing I will say as relates to that is that we've seen resilience in terms of there were many employers during COVID, one of the most difficult periods for the SME sector, that didn't lose employees, right? And didn't send home
Yes.
employees. And to come out from that and still carry through and to still be operating and not lose employees is very commendable. But in my opinion, that is not the be all and end all. It is commendable, but that is not it. I think, and this is my personal position now, that I think SMEs need a little bit more collaboration. And this is where organizations such as PSOT and the Confederation can come in, because maybe it needs to happen under umbrellas like these, where the validity of a process can be vetted and people are a lot more comfortable. I think that SMEs need to strongly look at the diversification of their portfolios, right? It's not just about staying in one area. It's not about putting all your eggs in one basket. Now, you do that initially when you start up a business, but you put aside something every month and you look at different investments. And I will map that to agriculture. We have a $7.2 billion food import bill. And from that, my analysis shows that we could produce half of that here. We could shave off half of that food import bill. That gap is an opportunity now, because maybe the farmers and the food producers don't have the capacity to get into that level of processing and manufacturing and business. So this is where the SME sector needs to also be able to identify non-traditional areas in which they could come together and they could collaborate and say, okay, there is a gap. This gap is over $3 billion. How do we structure an intervention that mitigates risk on all sides as much as humanly possible, and also diversify our income, right? And I think that organizations such as PSOT and the Confederation would be the perfect vehicles to lead in that conversation. Because now we will see, or we could see, that when your traditional line of business may be slow for whatever reason, you would have your non-traditional line that may be a little bit more secure. Because listen, no matter what, and I always say this, no matter what, people have to eat. And the amount of supermarkets we see popping up, I mean, people are eating, right? So I think in my book, food and food production is one of the most secure areas of investment for the SME sector. And as I said, this issue with Nestle, there is no shortage of SMEs coming forward. So I think that is something, looking at how this is unfolding, this is something we need to look at. And this is an avenue maybe we need to develop. Maybe PSOT can be the leader in that conversation to look at it in however way, maybe an SME fund or something, right, that leads in that diversification of portfolio. And I think that will only be adding strength to the SME sector. So that's what I have to say about your last contribution.
All right, guys, I just want to do a quick time check. It is 9:01. We tend to go around around 9:30. Once you all are available, once you all can make it. I know there are hands going up. There are a couple things I want to touch on though before we start to take questions and comments from the audience. But Those of you all who are on Zoom and on social media, if you do have questions, please raise your hand. Questions, of course, that you would like to ask yourselves or make a contribution. If you want to make a contribution, raise your hands, those who are on the Zoom. If you're on social media, please feel free to use the chats for your questions and comments. Just a couple of things that I think is important before we go to taking the contributions from the members of our audience. Now, we've been talking about the non-energy sector national diversification plan, if I got that right. If our viewers would like to find out more about this plan, maybe read it themselves, where can they go?
So as I said earlier, the government has been very transparent with this. If you go to the Ministry of Trade, Investment and Tourism's website, or you visit our website, psott.co, you will find links. All of the presentations, the video content are already uploaded, and we will also be producing some of our own features and thought leadership pieces, Leisha, in the next few weeks coming out of the consultation process. So from next week and the ongoing period, we will be producing those as well. So you can find it there.
Okay. My next question, and just to be a devil's advocate, and I know you all have said some great things on this program, Vivek, yourself, Donnie, right? Government has come, government has gone, but diversification away from the energy sector seems to have remained something very elusive. What is going to make the big difference this time?
There are a couple things.
Leisha, if I could say,
you go back.
oh, go ahead.
You go ahead. You go ahead.
If I could say, I've traveled, in traveling to the Far East, and one thing that I consistently keep seeing is that the foreign governments keep building industrial parks. Whether it's in China, whether it's in Vietnam, even Thailand, places like that I've been to. And the key aspect of these industrial parks is to facilitate startups, to facilitate small businesses. I mean, there are other parks as well, too, more mature ones and so on. But what I noticed, particularly when you look at places like in China and so on, when they want to start something new, when they want to start an investment and development in AI, in technology, in something, whether it be furniture building, whether it be garment industry, whether it be some sort of craft or something like that, there tends to be some park that tends to go up, that has concessions within the park that allows for businesses to be able to start up at a low cost. So we're talking about cost of entry. Cost of entry into diversification has to be part of the conversation. So I agree with you, right? Because diversification has become over a very long time, a catchphrase, a trendy kind of catchphrase that economists love to use and we hear a lot. We need to diversify, and diversification is the answer, and diversification will change things. But Donnie, myself, Rudy, we represent the granular aspect of things in terms of, well, all right, we understand that and we believe in diversification. How is it actually going to occur on the ground, and who do we want to see diversified? Now, my thing is that very large companies that are already making huge profits, for them, diversification carries a risk, an unknown risk, a risk where, they will send resources, particularly money, investment, other factors of production, where they are unsure of what the return could be, given the fact that they're already doing so well and making perhaps mega profits as it is doing what they're doing. They can expand or diversify along the line of what they are doing. There are other people, SMEs and so on, that may be saying, listen, I have been a retailer for the longest while, for 2 generations, going on to 3 generations now. We need to do something else. We need to think about earning our own Forex. We need to think about what else that we can sell or what we can do to get into another market as a retailer, but not as, not as a importer retailer, but as a manufacturer wholesaler or manufacturer retailer, working with an import substitution to begin with, and then looking at export. And the main bottleneck to that is, well, there are two large bottlenecks. One is financing, and the second one is, the cost of that particular factor of production I mentioned already, which is land. We could go the long route, which is to say, well, you could buy a piece of land, you could build upon it, and then you could put your factory there, but all of that takes time, and it takes even more money, which is why you see in other countries that kind of cultivate certain sectors, you have the government getting involved and building these industrial parks. Why are they building industrial parks and spending all this money? They're spending the money in order to create a crucible, as it were, right? Or a nursery, as it were, for startups, where you can come in as a startup at a lower cost than if you were going to do it before. One of the ideas that I've been pitching and speaking to Rudy and Donnie about is, why don't we take a similar model like that, and we say we give companies 2 years with which we price the price of land per square foot or square meter below market value, $2 or $3 below market value, and every year take it up towards market value. And the reason is that by lowering the cost of the most expensive factor of production, it may be easier for them, A, to get financing, B, to finance it themselves, and C, to be able to really develop this business that they're getting into. Learn about it, get them into the market, produce the good, and gather more market size and volume and sales and so on, so that by the time 2 years later, because it always takes a while for a business to grow, 2 years later, they may be up to scale in order to say, well, look, you know what? We're at the stage where we could actually factor in market value rates of land and so on into our business and so on, and we'd be okay for it. Whereas if they were to do that at the start, they may not be able to do so. So my point here is that on a very granular level, on the level of actually understanding what it takes for a business to move from what it is currently doing to think about doing something else, and what does that mean in terms of the mobilization of the factors of production, how are they going to finance it, what's it going to cost for them? Therein lies the key component of what is going to make the path towards diversification a reality, or what is going to be continue to be something that we talk about and that we try to sell without it actually happening. Because when people try to do it, they encounter these bottlenecks or these barriers. Like, for example, Donnie and I were chatting the other day, because I like to talk to Donnie, right? And Donnie, we were talking about the ADB. And the ADB, I like the model the ADB has, the Agricultural Development Bank. And when you look at the price at which agricultural land is priced for projects, to me it is very encouraging. When you are, like I was talking, Donnie, myself, and Rudy were at Sanwa Business pre-budget. And I actually got a call from some people after Sanwa Business pre-budget, and they were saying, it was so good and I'm so happy. And this particular woman was talking about they want to do this project, and they got in contact with the ADB, and they may be able to access a couple acres of land in Central somewhere, and this was going to be the price, and this was how they were asking for it to be paid back 6 months later or 3 months later. They could start to pay. That was the moratorium they had to get up to speed with the project they were going to do. And I thought, well, if we're doing it already in agriculture, why can't we take that same model and apply it to light manufacturing or processing, right? And perhaps even if there's spare land out there, utilize the same land and do the same thing. So the key to diversification, Leisha, is really in the details, as it were, right? in the details of how do we physically move through the administrative financing and mobilization of resources of a business that's, let's say, doing retail at the moment, diversifying into something else, whether that be in tourism, light manufacturing, or the processing of agricultural produce.
Lisha, I want to endorse everything Vivek has shared. And Donnie, I thought I was the only one he liked speaking with, so I don't know if
Vivek
to
likes
feel,
speaking.
yeah, I don't know if to feel jealous or to say thank you for, because then he would probably call me twice as much, right? So, Lisha, to add to what he said and to probably square it up for our viewers and listeners, this is going to sound a bit facetious and maybe self-soothing, but it's just a fact. The private sector, and maybe we should have done this at the beginning, the private sector organization Trinidad and Tobago did not exist prior to December 2025. The model of the PSOTT is aligned with those that have worked successfully in other territories, whether it's the United Kingdom, Indonesia, and closer to home in Barbados, Jamaica, and even Guyana. Recently, for those who follow the Jamaican press or news, the government wanted to introduce a new suite of, or I should say, revisions to their taxation regime. And as I said earlier, on this occasion, for whatever reason, they did not genuinely consult with the business community. And the PSOJ, the Private Sector Organization of Jamaica, because of their long-standing approach to advocacy and influencing public policy, they were actually able to redirect I'm saying it nicely, redirect the government's focus and to have the initial taxation regime changed in alignment with what the private sector wanted. You see, naturally and understandably, as our country grew sector by sector, you required nuanced representation, and various associations and groups emerged, ostensibly to ensure that everyone had an equitable space at the table. However, ironically, that also created a lot of fragmentation. And therefore, many times, you do not have a consolidated view from the private sector. Again, consensus doesn't mean 100%. It means that what we're asking for will lift the majority of boats if this tide increases. Some boats will either remain moored where they are, to extend the analogy, and some may actually sink because they are not doing what they are supposed to do. They probably were not operating equitably or ethically, or they did not reinvest, etc., because that is a responsibility of business. At the same time, the government passes regulations and policy, and you have to be in a position to take advantage of that, but also to protect your business, your continuity, to mitigate your own risk by reading market trends, by looking at customer behavior, etc., etc. So the PSOTT model did not exist before. And what it does is it provides an umbrella, a space, a table where different groups of business segments are represented. And for the first time, we can actively and proactively identify where there are commonalities or intersections. So, for example, throughout the consultation process, we identified that there are players in San Fernando, Sangre Grande, and Point Fortin who could actually benefit from plans in Chaguaramas. And some of them never knew that those opportunities were available because, quite frankly, business people are surviving. They are focused on their businesses, and we can't really expect them to read and to process the reams of information that is available. That is, again, why organizations like ours exist. So now we can match make better. We can provide that level of consensus building. And once this model is adopted, it is very difficult to create the fragmentation again because people see the value. And therefore, across administrations, you will have a defined pathway by which the majority of the private sector wants the economy to be developed. And to cap it all off, one of the people might say, well, why is it working at this point in time? I think we're at an ironic perfect storm moment where Trinidad and Tobago finally has, ironically, a burning platform where the energy revenues, even those that are projected for 2027 into 2028, by all the best estimations, including the World Bank, so independent parties, and our own homegrown economists, Leisha, those energy revenues will only sustain the economy. They are not going to provide the type of exponential growth buffers that we've experienced in the past. So people are feeling it. And unfortunately, in innovation theory, we say people either change through pleasure or pain. And most times it's more or less through pain. We've come out of a painful period. We've provided, some of us have come together and with the government, and we've provided this private sector led, private sector funded vehicle. And we are amplifying the voices of the regional and smaller associations across the country because they themselves are business people focused on their businesses. They don't always have the resources to administrate, but we do. That's the model we built. So we are leveraging this moment in time where Trinidad and Tobago is being forced in a way to come face to face with the reality that yes, we want energy to grow and expand. And of course, it's mainly a gas economy we have. But and at the same time, we finally need to identify these sectors for growth and for sustainability. And if we could feed ourselves a little bit more, if we could import a little bit less, if we could create higher quality, internationally acknowledged products, we could export some more and earn foreign exchange. And if we leverage our human capital better, we can create opportunities, especially in the services sector. And Leisha, once people get into that bandwagon and we lose this Dutch disease mentality, there's no going back. And governments, present and future, will have to align because at the end of the day, it is the private sector that controls capital. And I think I'm seeing a resurgence of that acknowledgement, especially amongst the SMEs. And also, they're doing it in a responsible manner. The business community that we have been meeting with, for all intents and purposes, they want to be part of the solution and they want to do things equitably, ethically, and for the overall benefit, because they understand that if Donnie's business grows, his employees become my customers. And that has finally connected, where in the past people sort of saw about their own. The old saying, if your neighbor house on fire, wet your own. But then they realize, wait a minute, if I don't collaborate, as Donnie is saying, or as Vivek is saying, if I don't reach across the aisle and look at how I could probably partner with somebody, then I'm going to be losing because those people are creating customers for me. So that's the simplest way I could break it down and answer your question. But it really redounds to people like us, the business leaders in the community, and those of us who are dedicated to diversification because we understand how important it is. We have to use this moment and we have to be consistent and we have to see it through. And that will entrench the model along with oil and gas.
Wonderful, wonderful. It sounds like we have some very exciting things in store.
Now, just one thing, Leisha. When we talk about collaboration, I'm not just pulling it out of a hat. I'm not just saying something that sounds nice. I can't go into the detail now, but in a few weeks, you're going to see a collaboration and you will see what happens when agriculture collaborates with the private sector. And you guys will see it. It's something that will show to both sides. It will show potential for both sides to come out from this in a better position, both from a market perspective and from a financial position. So give it a couple of weeks, guys, and you'll see something coming out really nice.
Like I said, we have some exciting things to look forward to. All right, I'm seeing 3 persons with their hands up, so we can go to that now. Alim Mohammed, he is yes, from the Sour Business Association. Alim, over to you. I know your hand up was first.
First of all, I want to compliment Donnie, Vivek, and Rudolph. I know Rudolph was a baby, but I didn't know he would have matured to such a very important character in Trinidad. And I am very proud of him. And I want to say that when Vivek spoke about salmon business, I think that our one was very interested. And when we talk about land, Nawaz Karim raised the question of land tenure. And I think either Vivek or either Donnie came in because one of the problems we have a lot of, especially agriculture, we have a lot of farmers have things to do and they want land. But the point is, they don't have tenure like to go to the bank that they can use as collateral values and so on. And this is something that I think needs to be given some attention, even in the common budget, because I know today, I know if a businessman went to ADB today to try to get things done, and what was it Vivek was talking about ADB. I know they have a young new team working there, and they are now trying to help some of the farmers. But one of the important things that is very important is the land tenure situation. That if once some of the farmers could get the lands, like Nawaz Karim, he does peppers, but he doesn't have the amount of land, and then he wants tenure to expand. And then when the 6 point where we spoke about tourism, I must say that I was one of the people who sat down in 2010 with Cornel Bokradi, and we developed that. And I'm happy it's back on the table now because those 6 areas of tourism is going to bring in millions of dollars in the tourism industry. Because I mean, people are traveling. My family now came back from Alaska. Why we can't start to develop Trinidad and leave these type of tourism? I can't say I can't go Alaska, but we have a lot of potentials in tourism. The ecotourism, all the areas of tourism. And if we can develop the tourism sector, we'll get medical tourism, we get sports tourism, and all the different types of tourism. And if that can be, which I see this government is good because Minister Kama Maraj is a dynamic minister. And his team, he has a good team working. And I know see the new tourist board is on, and they have the hotel group at Mishani Lane, they are working. So I have seen that things going to happen both in Trinidad and Tobago in tourism. But these 2 areas, I don't want to go into the others because you all spoke about warehouse, and I happen to be on NFM board. And a lot of things you all talk about tonight is things that we are looking at. And we want to see the manufacturing sector develop, that probably we could all partner together in the terms of manufacturing. So I want to compliment the team. And I have confidence in Rudolph and his team. Salmon Business it was a pleasure working with you all. And we want to continue working with you all, right? We don't only want it now, but this must continue even outside the budget. We must keep this organization moving across the country and the different over the year. So we will be able to be developing ideas across the country. That's all I want to say. Thank you very much.
Certainly. Thank you, Alim.
Thanks, Alim.
All right, I think Nirmala is next. Nirmala, would you unmute, please?
Sure. Hi, good night. I would also want to compliment the panel tonight and say that quite a number of the items that were discussed really resonate significantly. And in terms of a few of them in particular I would want to reiterate would be the one that spoke about the incubators and the e-tech parks. And that type of cluster approach really would assist in helping the sectors develop considerably. Because something like organic certification, which is really a challenge to be able to implement, for instance. But in an instance where you have designated areas of land for specific land use, it's a lot easier to develop in terms of utilities, infrastructure, these kinds of things. So the investments make sense on a larger scale, and especially since the country is focusing on exports. In terms of incentivizing development in sectors as well, Mr. Charon spoke about it in other countries. But I know in terms of the garment sector, Trinidad and Tobago would have had a significant garment sector in years gone by. And that would have declined. It's basically really not thriving at all, honestly. And Singapore, I believe, or is it Malaysia, one of those countries, in order to develop their sector, what they did was that the government basically subsidized all of the imports of the raw materials coming into the country for a few years, for a number of years. And in that way, the cost of production was low. And then they would have implemented where you had some trainers, people coming in and going into factories and really helping them develop their quality systems in terms of their manufacturing production, in terms of creating patterns, in terms of just assessing how to produce quality garments. And as the industry grew, the subsidies would have decreased and the industries were able to really manage themselves and be sustainable over time. So that's the kind of thing that we really believe government intervention is needed for, to establish the framework that is needed to support businesses. And aligned with that, one thing I would like to say is that agro-processing, PSOT, the work that PSOT is doing is great. In terms of agriculture, agro-processing, these are the key areas we see outside of the energy sector that can really grow. And therefore, focused attention in those areas, not just coming from the Ministry of Trade, because I know that discussions happen very thorough, in a thorough manner within the Ministry of Trade, at least over the past year. However, the conversations and the buy-in that is needed from the partner agencies or partner ministries really, really need to be strengthened, because what has to happen is that everybody has to be operating across all ministries on the same priorities in order for projects to flow in a timely manner. Because if the Ministry of Trade has to convince the ministry that deals with infrastructure why it needs infrastructure on a particular estate, for instance, the time that it's going to take, the drawn out processes, really not going to be integrated enough to have the project delivered in a timely manner in order to implement and be successful in the desired time frame. So when you have a government changes, the priority is going to change. And you don't want that the project really doesn't flourish during the time frame you want it to prove to the population that there is success in this methodology. So that type of integration, I really hope that PSOT is able to create the linkages necessary and be able to provide the evidence or the supporting systems to provide the evidence to say, we want this to continue regardless of government changes. The private sector would have enough evidence to say, this is how we need business to operate. This cannot change. This is the established mechanism going forward, not that the government changes and priorities change. So that's my contribution. Thank you.
Alicia, I really want to thank Nirmala for her intervention and just quickly say that is what we call the soft influence. Government agencies can speak to each other. However, we in the private sector, with the right consolidation, we can apply the soft influence and the external pressures that are required to encourage, let's use a nice word, or to persuade those who are sticking to use some WD-40 and glide along, you know. So it's important for, and then that's where we support each other, because again, if I'm from sector A and I understand what's happening in sector B, I can add my voice to it, because again, as I said earlier, it will redound to my benefit anyway. So that's what we're building piece by piece, and also to ensure we establish accountability frameworks. Because to be quite fair, there are times when ministers and higher level technocrats are committed to something. But if, again, we in the private sector don't report and collate our data and share it appropriately and in the protected ways, then we can't build a business case to demonstrate where exactly the sticking point might be. It may be on someone's desk and the minister has no knowledge of this whatsoever. And if we don't identify that sticking point by sharing data, we can't then build a business case to go to the minister and say, we've identified exactly where you need to knock the next time you visit the ministry.
Thank you, Rudy. So I'm seeing now one final person with their hand up. Richard, over to you. Unmute, please.
Yeah. Sure, just quickly before we close. First of all, I think the viewers and the listeners tonight have experienced a masterclass in what a transformative private sector can add to the government's futuristic plans for where this diversified economy is going to go. Because quite frankly, you have to remember that the non-oil economy is already diversified. The problem is it's not transformed. Okay, it's had all these sectors. These are historic sectors, and 90% are not going to be dropped. And maybe we'll add on a few more, but we need to transform them. And we've never attempted to transform them before. So this was a masterclass you just listened to of what the private sector sees, and that is a small snippet of where the private sector is ready, willing, and charged with the responsibility to actually support government with government, not just to support government, to support government with government towards transforming the non-oil economy. That's the most important thing. We also have to remember that the ministry, everybody keeps talking about the Ministry of Trade, but do you know the Ministry of Trade is also the Ministry of Investment and also the Ministry of Tourism?
Yes.
So just for argument's sake, I'm just saying that when we start saying that this is the Ministry of Trade, we forget to mention that the two, trade is trade. All right? The ones we need to work on is investment and tourism. We don't have much to work on in terms of trade. Trade is duties, this and that and the other, a very boring type of thing that is mostly used for the purpose of either raising duties or not raising duties. The investment, we need to shift gears and move into the investment side and talk about the minister being the Minister of Investment. You want investment, tourism, and trade. We need to change the bowling. And if we change the bowling, then it will be that we are focused like a laser on what we want to actually transform. And through tourism and through investment, trade will remain. Trade will go along. Trade will be determined to shift the trade system into 1 degree in a different direction is like taking a oil tanker and somebody swimming to push it around. Okay? The investment and tourism could perform very quickly, and that is what we're talking about. So one of the recommendations I'm going to make tonight is that you heard a masterclass from the private sector. We need to hear a masterclass from the government. We need this particular forum you have here. We need to get to hear a masterclass from the government in terms of the investment, tourism, whatever else you want to bring. Bring them to this forum and let them tell the viewers and whatnot how they are working with the private sector or what their masterclass is for this transformation. When we have those two together, your listening public and anybody else who wants to take this and turn it into a piece of media will understand clearly that this is where it's going to be going, right? So I just thought, and once again, thank you to everyone who has spoken, including those who spoke on the other matters. And I would say that the last speaker, Nomala, you picked up on a very important point, and it's called legislative diversification and not policy. It is legislation diversification. So that you have to change that direction. You have to go to the House. You have to talk about changing legislation, right? And not the women fancy. And when you have something good, legislate it. So that it's not something that's going to be stopped by the women fancy of somebody who wants to do it for whatever the other purposes are. So thank you very much. That's just my contribution. I hope it helps.
Thank you.
I would like to thank you sincerely for your contribution. I couldn't agree with you more. This was indeed a masterclass. That's number one. Number two, I have to say, yes, I agree with you even more that we need a masterclass from the government. Now, let me just give you an interesting fact. When we started this program, would you believe that Dr. Neil Gostein was the very, very first person who came on this program to be interviewed? Very first program. So you could say he's helped us, he launched this platform with us. But the thing with the government, I mean, as Rudy would have acknowledged, you know, their attention now is in so many different areas. They're very busy. But I will certainly approach them, especially Kama. I would love to have Kama on this program. We are a big fan of Minister Maraj and Dr. Gostein. Dr. Gostein has been with us on so many occasions and numerous occasions, as Donnie would know, but very, very busy right now. But thank you. Thank you.
I think we will definitely try for after budget, based on the
Right.
prescriptions of what is going to be announced, to really bring that. I think that was a very, very important point that Richard made, to bring a masterclass from the government now to this. I think it will really tie in the conversation together. Yeah.
Oh, guys, we are over time, believe it or not. We do try to finish on time.
Lisha, sorry if I may, I saw Jesse James has his hand up. He's
Okay.
the president of the Maritime Services Association. Might I beg you to give him 1 minute? He's one
Absolutely.
of our members too.
Absolutely. Just over to you. Well, Jesse, I know you're on mute, but we're not hearing you. Okay, let me just see. Can you unmute, please?
Uh-oh.
They're not
Okay.
hearing. Maybe there's some audio
We,
problem.
we tried for you, Jesse.
Um,
Thanks.
Lisha, I saw a comment coming from Alim. Could you check it?
Dr. Gostein, oh my. Okay, so we're getting some news that Dr. Gostein's mom has just passed, and please,
Hmm.
Yes, just over a week ago.
oh,
Yes.
Okay.
okay, I wasn't even aware of that. So sincere condolences to the Gostein family. We're very, very sorry to hear that. Alim, thank you. Thank you for letting us know. Right? Justy, I don't know if you want to try one last time. I see a note here connecting to audio. All right. Sorry.
Oh,
I think there's
next.
some technical
Yes.
problem.
Thank you.
Right? But you know, we are happy to have you all on any other time, right? Consider this platform one of the PSOT platforms. Alim, we are out of time, but if you can make it quick.
Alim, you could unmute.
Alim?
Yeah, I said I want to compliment and congratulate Dr. Donny Rogers. Donny has been doing some work for the last month, and this country has shaken up with the work he's doing and his association with various members of the cabinet. But I am very proud that knowing Donny a while now and the work he's doing, he's making things happen and wonders taking place. So we have full confidence and we want to give him the full support in whatever decision he's making big team he's working with.
Good.
Thank
And
you, thank you, thank you, Liam.
Donnie, how
I
about
don't make decisions. I am not a decision maker. I give guidance.
but Donnie, you have a big growing fan club, you know.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's what happens when you
Thank
do
you.
good work.
All
Yeah.
right. We are over time. We do try to finish at 9:30, but we went over, right? So I'm going to invite closing comments now. Maybe Vivek, we could start with you. Any closing remarks for us?
Yeah, I would just like to say that I feel confident. I feel after a long while, I feel confident about the future. Um, and why I feel confident is that there are a lot of things that are in play. We have, for the first time, and we really haven't heard much of that before, we have so many projects on the table. And the truth is, not all those projects are going to come to fruition. But if you have 20, 30 projects, then the reality is that some of them are going to actually happen. And while we wait for these very big projects to happen, um, in the near future, there are other projects, one of which Donnie had just kind of spoken about, that may happen sooner than that. And Confed and PSOT are actually working to see what we could do with diversification, what we could do with services, what we could do with tourism on the SME level as well too. And we're hoping that that is also something that can happen and make change in the short term. So what we actually have happening here is we have a multi-focused approach. And that multi-focused approach isn't coming directly from the government. It's been facilitated by the government. And that's what's so important about this, that they're listening. So that in the midst of them dealing with very, very large and significant projects that are going to change the economy, change the landscape, um, you have the revitalization of agriculture is also happening from within the government, but also assisted um, by Donnie and others who are really, spearheading a lot of change, as it were, in that. And we are also looking to find that kind of revitalization and evolution and opportunity for SMEs. Um, so it's not that, just the big projects are going to succeed. It's not that just it's all going to be about the energy sector or manufacturing, big manufacturing again. Um, what is great about this economy that when everything eventually converges, some will converge sooner, some will converge later on, that we hope that the change will be a systemic one that will be felt on all the different levels. And it's my greatest hope that it'll trickle all the way down, because that again is where the true success is going to be, when it trickles all the way down. Um, and I feel confident that many of the people who are being involved, and involved in a way that they are not directly related with the government. Huh? They're not hired by the government, they're not working for the government, but nonetheless, this is all really coming from, um, and from patriotism, I have to say, um, and from a level of service to the country, and an acknowledgement of what it is the country needs, and more so what it is that the people on all different levels within the country needs. Um, and so I feel very confident about what can happen. And again, some of the people here, Donnie, um, Rudolph, even um, Richard, who always liked to stay behind and stuff like that, but had a very, very
Correct.
important part to play in all of this from
Oh,
the very,
yes.
very conception. Um, all these people are working really hard to make a change for our country, and not just Trinidad, but Tobago as well too, and everybody who lives here. Together with the government that has afforded us the opportunity to collaborate with them, which is not something that we take for granted or we take lightly.
Thank you, Vivek. So over to you now, Rudy, for any closing remarks you may have.
Lisha, Donnie, I must start by saying thank you again for inviting us. These are the types of conversations that are required in our country to lift the narrative, edify persons, and to engage with them in a genuine manner. Give them the opportunity to ask questions, to understand how things work, and what's their role in solving the problems. And I think that would be my closing comment, that I've said it along the consultation journey. If you are a business, you're a sole trader, a mechanic, a taxi driver, a retailer, and you go all the way up, get active, seek out opportunity, rekindle that excitement you had as an entrepreneur to take some risk, some calculated risk, and collaborate, get involved, connect with one of your associations or your regional chamber or one of the other BSOs, or definitely the PSOTT. And when you get involved and you collaborate, Leisha, we can align with and complement what the Prime Minister, who has been very consistent in her messages and her vision, and likewise, we can align with public policy and not only accept it, but help to create it proactively. And when it's created, leverage it, put in the work to use what's there, and let us all together really build this more resilient and sustainable Trinidad and Tobago, not just for us, but for future generations. So thank you again. And we are here to serve and to unify business and drive transformation, as our chairman said earlier.
Thank you. Such very, very strong words. Donnie, over to you.
As the CEO said, get involved. I think there is a lot of space for people to get involved with the intent to create positive change and with the intent to assist in that creation of change. I think personally that the government should continue to do what it's doing. They are on the right course. And this is not something I usually acknowledge, but there are too many people outside there just talking rubbish, right? On one hand, everybody want the country to get better. But on the other hand, every single thing the government do, it's wrong. But for the last 10 years, it couldn't get it correct. That makes zero sense whatsoever. So I personally believe you had 10 years, you didn't do a good job. Statistically, it says that you didn't do a good job. It's time to let the current government do what they're doing, because we are seeing the turnaround. I have reported the turnaround in the agricultural sector, at least. And we are seeing the fruits of the labor of the last couple of years create that embryonic turnaround that we need to build on. After 10 years, it is highly unlikely that 2 years is going to create or emit any sustainable change. It takes a little bit longer than that. To the people who say, yeah, they had the answers then, yes, they have the answers, but the implementation is not a knee-jerk reaction. And let us be very sensible about our approach. So the answers are being implemented. The implementation could never be a knee-jerk reaction. There is no sustainability in that whatsoever.
Agreed.
So
And
to those
Donnie,
who
if I
said,
could interject there, it should be inclusive as well too. You can't just have it for certain sectors, but whatever transformation there is should include everyone as much as as they can, right? Which is exactly
correct.
what
Yeah.
the benefits in the agricultural sector, like manufacturing, tourism, and so on, and maritime sector could do.
Yeah, and I think when we look at the gap that was created in the agricultural sector, and as I said earlier, it creates a $3 billion void that I am hinting to the private sector, come together and put your leverage where the money is. And I think if we do that and we go forward in that collective and collaborative manner, we will definitely see the country develop at a pace that we have never seen before. So
And
thank you
Lisha,
guys
we definitely want to
for,
come back, Donnie and Lisha, and talk about financing.
Of course.
yeah, definitely, because we also need to talk about strategic financing,
Yes.
not just the mainline type, go submit your documents, get something that you're bound to within a certain period, right? Strategic financing at this stage, development is a conversation that we need to happen. It's a global model that has assisted both SME and agri sector. And I think it's about time that Trinidad engage in that discussion. So, CEO, a very good point. So that's it for me. It was a wonderful discussion. I think we touched on many salient points. We went into a deep dive, and as Richard said, the participants got a masterclass. And again, this is the one program that is available that participants could actually reach out to the subject matter experts that we have and get answers directly. So thank you guys. Wonderful program.
Good evening. I don't know if you all
I
hear
think
me now.
Jeffrey is on, right?
Go ahead,
Right.
go
My
ahead.
my apologies. I'll keep it to my minute. I was on my phone and I now switch across the laptop, so I didn't get to start off. But just to make a comment, so my name is Jesse James. So who don't know me, President of the Marine Services Association of Trinidad and Tobago in Chagaramas. So thank you all for allowing me to say this.
Okay.
So in all of my going on 30 years of being in Chagaramas, this is the first time I am actually seeing, and up to today, I can say without any doubts whatsoever that things are finally happening for us in our sector. And I say it with passion, and I say it with all confidence because I've seen it. People reach and they're empowered, they come, they talk to us, do site visits, the whole 9 yards. When time to put your money where your mouth is, everybody backs off. This is the first time, and I really, really want to say kudos to Rudolph and the team and Mr. Donnie. First time I think we chatting, and to Vivek, yes. Everybody. It gives me a whole lot of hope. There's a lot of work to continue to be done. I heard some people making comments about land issues. We are seeing increases in Chagaramas now. We need lots of different things to be sorted out. But I can say, and Rudy and I had a couple of conversations about some starting to chart some ways forward in dealing with the different government agencies. And I am fine with working with all the agencies, and we have to do it and work together. And PSOT is it really is. It has brought hope to us in Chagaramas, and I really, really just want to say thank you and look forward to the continued successes in all the different challenges that have been facing us for not 10 years, not 15 years, not even 20 years, for 30 plus years. I had a little meeting yesterday with one of our old presidents, Donald Stallmeyer. He's built this amazing boat, Rudy. You need to come and see this in Chagaramas. He's going to launch it. It's really something else.
I'm coming.
He's going to launch it, and I'd like to invite you to.
I want to come too, Jesse.
We all coming. Lisha's going to do a live.
I'm telling you, it's his third boat that he's built.
I am all for that.
He's asking me, well, Jesse, what's the big deal? This is my third boat I'm building. But people need to understand who built that. And that is what Chagaramas has to offer. The electricians, the woodworkers, the fiberglassers. He's building a stainless steel thing for on top of the boat right now. It's an amazing vessel. Homemade, not built nowhere else, but right here in Trinidad. And it was all done by hand-skilled men right there. So we have so much to offer and so much to work on. So anyway, I've crossed my minutes. So thank you. And I'm really looking forward to continuing working with you all, and whatever my contributions are to help support, I am here to support it in whatever way I can. So thank you all again.
There you go.
Jesse, I will say that is something that we would like to showcase, local talent at that level. So please keep us informed.
Donnie, it's amazing.
And we would love to be there, man. That
Right.
sort of talent has to be showcased, you know.
It's
That's just
actually-
wonderful.
It's right every morning. This morning, I'm walking up to my office and I'm looking at this vessel. It's on Jackson. It's shining. They can take a shave on it right now, and he's gonna launch it. And I am feeling so proud that this is a Trinidad product, handmade right over here.
Well, you know,
Wonderful, wonderful.
come back out in the invitation now, you are lots of witnesses to this invitation.
All right. He's gonna have a little party, a little lunch.
I'm
So
glad
you're invited.
to hear you and you got a chance to speak. So,
Thank
folks,
you.
this has been a great program. So great, we actually went to almost a full 2 hours, a full 2 hours, I would say, as
Yeah,
Richard
yeah.
was indeed a masterclass. So sincerely, from the bottom of our hearts, I'd like to thank Vivek and Rudolph, and of course, my fantastic co-host, Donnie, right? It was very, very, very informative, and we certainly look forward to having PSOT back here again. Consider this a platform that you all could use, you know, anytime you need us, we are here. To all who attended, our viewers, our listeners, I want to thank you for coming on the program. I want to thank you for your questions, your contributions, your support. Members of the media who joined us, I saw a few media houses. Thank you. Stay safe, Trinidad and Tobago, and we shall see you all again next week, Tuesday at 8 p.m. for another episode of One on One. Thank you and good night.
Thanks so much,
Have a good night,
Leisha.
Safe,
Thanks so much.
everyone.
Thank you.
Take care. Thank you.
Yeah.